Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dal, and this week we get yet another build of the War Within Alpha. With this week's build bringing us the much needed, much requested features such as being able to go pantsless when transmogging a character. Besides this though, about half of our class's roster are going to go through additional changes with new stuff for mages, new stuff for death knights, even rogues are getting a talent here or two. But the biggest revamp is going to be available for destruction warlocks, and we've seen warlocks really cooking over the last few weeks with affliction and demonology getting entire talent tree revamps, which have generally been received rather positively. But then destruction was the only spec that really needed that final push in order to get a big revamp on their own. And that revamp is finally here, and today I want to do a full overview of what the destruction talent tree looks like over on the alpha. Right before we get into that though, if you guys want to see more regular class updates and class videos such as these for the War Within Alpha, be sure to follow the channel. Otherwise, let's dive right in. So, over the last few weeks, we've seen complete revamps for specs like Affliction, specs like Demonology, and now is the time for the spec of Destruction to get a turn. Part of this update that allows Destro to get quite an evolution, as you can see here, just a completely different layout altogether, which is exciting. We'll get through that in a second, but them taking away a lot of that power out of the class and out of the playstyle, out of the class tree, allows them to bake it more into the spec tree for Destro. Though looking at the Destro talent tree on stream earlier, we didn't really notice too many new talents. There are a handful of them, however, though there'll be a lot of familiarity as you're going from the very top rows all the way down into the capstones, but there's far more options, and it's actually, I think, an improved version of the talent tree. So the best way to display it is to completely clear it, to go through every one of the talent rows. Off the top, we have things such as Conflagration, which goes into Backdraft and into Rain of Fire. Very basic abilities, and then from there, it's kind of sad to see this, but Havoc is not a baseline ability, even though I feel like it should be part of baseline destruction since it's so iconic and core to the way that Destro plays, but I digress. But as we're trying to build out our Destro Warlock, we are going to go with Roaring Blaze, and we'll try to focus on trying to unlock further down to the talent tree. With 3 points spent, I really want to pick up Cataclysm, but I think something like Reverse Entropy is a must-have. Things like Explosive Potential are really good, and there's another talent called Indiscriminate Flames. Backdraft will now increase the damage of your next Chaos Bolt by 5%, and increases the critical strike chance of your next Incinerate or Soulfire by 35%. The Soulfire one in particular, because there's quite a few new buffs to Soulfire, but it's cool that we have a conflagration that can now either amp the damage of Chaos Bolt or provide you additional resources with a crit of Incinerate or Soulfire, but also potentially decent damage output. In the next row, we have things like Shadowburn, then we have Emberstorm. Emberstorm increases the damage done by fire spells by 2% and reduces cast time of Incinerate by 20%. Seems kind of significant. In the middle row, we have ourselves Grimoire Sacrifice as a choice node, or Summoner's Embrace, which is a talent combo that Affliction Warlocks also have. This one simply increases the damage you and your pets do by 3%. I think it's going to be a decent little combo here, which then leads into Summon Infernal. On the right hand side, we have Flashpoint, which grants you haste when you hit enemies with Immolate that are above 80% health, and then Fire and Brimstone, which actually has some synergetic value, especially as Diabolist with things that buff Incinerate damage, and being able to cleave those Incinerates can be kind of good to a degree. But we'll pick things up like Summon Infernal, which then leads into Eradication, which is a favorite for many warlocks. Things like Infernal Brand, which gets play here and there, but then we have Crash and Chaos, which is, I think, almost a must-have if you are going to be playing your warlock. Things like Ashen Remains is also a very staple choice, but Scalding Flames may not be that choice for everybody. On the right hand side, we have Channel Demon Fire, which can now be spec'd into, and then you can also go further down into Raging Demon Fire. Or you can instead go with Shadowburn, pick up maybe Conflagration of Chaos, and a couple of new talents here like Blistering Atrophy, which increases the damage of your Shadowburn by 20%, and the critical strike chance of Shadowburn is increased by additional 50% when damaging a target that is below 30% health, giving it a little bit more oomph in the execute department, giving it a little bit more crit value. I think at the end of the day, you will still end up using Chaos Bolt quite a bit, unless they'll really amplify the damage of Shadowburn, but it may be a decent ability to use for mobility purposes. Though if you did end up speccing into both of them, you will also unlock a talent of Fiendish Cruelty. When Shadow Burn fails to kill a target that is at or below 30% health, its cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds, which could give you a little bit better overall output with Shadow Burn, especially with it having 2 charges, so you might be able to use this ability more regularly, which may end up making a decent soul shard spender. Though that being said, Shadow Burn just doesn't get a lot of play, so I'm not really worried about investing into it, but you will see kind of like the way that the talent tree now structures. Picking up Eradication as well as Crashing Chaos gives you basically almost the entirety of the class tree for you to pick from, and you still have 5 points to spend in the rest of the tree in order to build out your build. So if you want to pick up things like Backlash into a Cataclysm, then you're left with 3 more talents for you to spend in any way you want to. So if you want to go into Channel Demon Fire, into Raging Demon Fire, you're more than welcome to. You want to amplify your dot damage as a Wither Warlock, you're more than welcome to. You want to amplify your Havoc damage, you can do so too. But it gives you a couple of choices. There's actual choices in the Destruction talent tree, which I find really good. And that's something Destruction I feel like kind of lacked in Dragonflight. There wasn't too many options of how you could spec out your character, and all of the talents and their positionings was kind of awkward to really fully invest into. But right now, it's very straightforward. You pick it up all of the things that make core Destruction Warlock function, and you're able to have fun with a lot of the choices, which actually do come out to be personal choices that you can use to further amplify your gameplay. For this purpose, I'm going to pick up a couple of points here and there just so we can get further down the talent tree for some of the more fun stuff. Further down in the next row, we have Devastation, which increases critical strike chance of destruction spells by 5%. To the next of that is going to be Diabolic Embers, which gives you more soul shard generation on Incinerates. Ritual of Ruin is a good old same ritual. Every 10 soul shards spent grants you Ritual of Ruin, making your next Chaos Bolt or Rain of Fire consume no soul shards, and have its caster reduced by 50%. You can further amplify your Infernals with Rain of Chaos to spawn additional Infernals. Then we have the talent of Demon Fire Mastery, which increases the damage of Channel Demon Fire, but also allows the ability to deal damage 35% faster, so if you need to quickly channel Demon Fire, you'll be able to do so fairly quickly with the talent upgrade if you do invest deep into it. And then we have the talent of Dimensional Rift, which is actually going to have a few more talents that can actually now kind of spec out of or spread out into. But I'll kind of go over that in a little bit here once we take a look at some of the other options. So for any of you that are not a fan of Dimensional Rift, we'll skip it for things like Soulfire, which is about the same, does a decent bit of damage, generates a soul shard, and applies Immolate to the target. But now Soulfire has an upgrade talent below it called Decimation, which is a ton of fun to play with. Your critical strikes have a chance to reset the cooldown of your next Soulfire and reduce the cast time of your next Soulfire by 80%. And the way this talent works right now over on the alpha is quite good and quite fun to play with. The proc rate seems to be a little bit sporadic, but as you crit, which is going to be a basic part of that Destruction Warlock gameplay, you have a chance to get the ability to proc, which gives you a very fast cast Soulfire that's more likely to crit if you are combining it together with talents such as Indiscriminate Flames, which essentially allows your Soulfires to do roughly similar damage to that of a Chaos Bolt, though it doesn't have the same soul shard cost of a Chaos Bolt and is actually cast a little bit quicker. Though Chaos Bolt is a guaranteed critical strike, where this one is a chance to crit, so there is going to be a little bit of a difference between those two. But in my time testing, at least when it comes to training dummies, the ability seems to proc often enough. It's a little bit sporadic, but it does give you an idea that you could technically invest heavily into critical strikes. And if they're generous enough with the proc rate, which happens yet again with the ability, it deals a decent bit of damage, and the fast cast I feel like adds a little bit extra rotational fun in your gameplay. But from there on, we have a couple other options. From Devastation, we can then build into Ruin, which increases the critical strike damage of destruction spells by 5%, which is a nice combination since you crit as often as you do. From Devastation or Ritual of Ruin or Diabolic Embers, we pick up Burn to Ashes, which is now, you'll notice a lot of these talents are 1 talent point cost. That is something I also should have mentioned earlier. A lot of these abilities you would have to invest 2 talent points into, maybe 1, but in most cases 2, in order to gain full value out of them. But a lot of those more powerful talents, such as Upgrade with Master Ritualist, as well as some of the other ones we saw earlier in the top parts of the talent tree, a lot of them are just 1 singular cost. And there's really, I don't think there's a single talent that cost 2 talent points for destruction either, which is a fantastic change that has allowed us to basically create a build where we can have a lot of that freedom and flexibility to experiment with different talents. Going off of Ritual of Ruin further down, we have things like Power Overwhelming, which is going to grant you mastery whenever you spend soul shards, Master Ritualist, which buffs the effectiveness of Ritual of Ruin. But from Master Ritualist, we do have changes to Chaos Incarnate, which is going to let your Chaos Bolt, Rain of Fire, and Shadowburn to always retain 70% of their maximum mastery value. Right next to that is Avatar of Destruction, where consuming Ritual of Ruin summons an Overfiend for 8 seconds. Though the sound as of right now does not really function, but the Overfiend will generate 1 Soul Shard fragment every half a second, and will cast Chaos Bolt at its summoner's target, dealing chaos damage. Though I'm not really sure how long the Overfiend is going to be active for, but it is going to be replacing essentially the Blasphemy summons that Destruction Warlocks used to get, with the Overfiend mostly being there for that pure single target damage, but also the resource value generation. To the right of the Avatar of Destruction, we have Improved Chaos Bolt, which simply buffs the output of Chaos Bolt, increasing its damage by 10% and reducing cast time by half a second. Then we have a whole section of Dimensional Rift talents on our right hand side. Now Dimensional Rift on its own I think is a bit of a hit or miss talent for certain Destro Warlocks. I think from a PvP perspective, a lot of the Warlocks prefer Dimensional Rift for its mobility capabilities. You're able to rip open rifts while on the move to be able to blast at your target with rifts following your target even if they're trying to hide behind line of sight like walls or pillars, which is incredibly potent and can provide him a little bit extra burst and consistency within PvP content. Though for the PvE side of things, you didn't really see Dimensional Rift getting a lot of play until they got tier set that supported the damage of Dimensional Rifts, allowing Warlocks to unlock additional rifts that dealt even more damage, but also letting these rifts cleave multiple targets. Though a lot of those ideas of how those rifts can be modified through tier sets are being applied for this version of Dimensional Rift with talents that further support it. Like Dimensional Ripper, which is a non-functional talent. In fact, a lot of these talents don't really work right now, but you can see at least the idea of what they have behind these talents. With Dimension Ripper, Incinerate has a chance to create a Dimensional Rift or recharge a Dimensional Rift if learned. So if you decide not to play with rifts, but rather you want passive rifts, picking up Demon Fire Mastery and then go in Dimensional Ripper can allow you Incinerates to create rifts which can generate you additional resources. Though picking up the rift directly allows you to pick up Unstable Rift's talent, where the bolts from Dimensional Rifts will deal damage to nearby enemies, which is your Season 3 Dragonflight's tier set being added as a talent option. Further down, if you decide to go with Dimensional Ripper, you can upgrade it with Flame Rift, where Dimension Rifts can now summon a powerful Flame Rift, which I imagine is going to be similar to effectiveness as the Flame Rifts in Dragonflight. Or you can pick up Lessons of Space and Time, where while you have a Dimensional Rift active, all of your damage is increased by a set amount. Though this talent is really going to fluctuate in value depending on the type of rift that you create. You see, with the Shadowy Tear, you get to create a rift that lasts for quite a while, 14 seconds, where it deals consistent shadow damage over time, which allows you to get the most amount of benefit of the damage increase. An Unstable Tear is a rift that deals chaos damage, but it happens a lot more rapidly, making it a bit of more of a burstier rift that is short-lived. And then we have a Chaos Tear, which fires a quick Chaos Bolt and closes almost immediately, with this rift doing a decent bit of damage and also allowing this Chaos Bolt from the rift to scale with crit damage as well, but this one would give you the least amount of uptime for the buff that is included. But to get back to the topic of destruction, I overall found this change to the destruction talent tree good for multiple reasons. I don't think it's perfect, and I feel like maybe there's going to be additional adjustments going forward, but at least the structuring of the destruction talent tree has a lot better pathing and a ton more options as you head way further down towards the capstone options. There's a lot of cool little talents in between of others that allow you to kind of springboard into a very specific playstyle, like being able to pick up your Soul Fire, which is generally good, but then also being able to run it and amplify it with Decimation has been a ton of fun, and I've loved this combo. Having the talents such as Shadowburn and even Channel Demon Fire, which are talents that generally have been in a weird spot when it comes to optimizing your talents as a Destruction Warlock in Dragonflight, now these talents are way out of the way. The middle row is going to have things like Summon Infernal and all of the basic talents that you know and love when it comes to destruction. But if you want to spec Shadowburn and supporting talents, they're off to the side, so you don't necessarily have to path through them to pick up some of the better, more optimal options. And the same thing goes for Channel Demon Fire as well. If you want to experiment with it, you're more than welcome to, though again it's off to the side where you can still pick up all of the basics down in the center. And as you're starting to get towards this row right here, you can go back and invest your talent points, right about like 5 of them or so, back towards the very top end of the talent tree, so you can pick up things like Rolling Havoc. You can invest back into a Cataclysm if you want to, Pyrogenics, Backlash, or really customize your playstyle and layout in any way you want to. And there's a lot of possibilities now in terms of how you end up building out your Destruction Warlock. And overall, I think it's a fantastic update. Definitely don't think it's going to be the final one. I'm sure Destruction, as well as Demonology and Affliction, are going to get additional changes going forward. But I feel like this one is at least a good first step towards trying to optimize Destruction and try to give the player a little bit more control in terms of how you end up building out your Warlock. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what I think about Destruction. I do want to hear from you guys instead. What do you think about the Destruction talent tree changes in the comments down below? Do you like what they've done with them so far, and do you like the options given to the spec of Destruction Warlock? Are you satisfied with the amount of choices and the pathing that Destruction has access to? And are you excited to try out the new version of upgraded things like Shadowburn, or maybe amplified versions of Channel Demon Fire, maybe even a better version of Soulfire with the upgrade with Decimation? And what are your thoughts about this whole right hand side of the talent tree with Dimensional Rift as well as all of its upgrading talents? Do you think this will be enough in order to make Dimensional Rift more playable of a talent, or would it be enough for you to pick up Dimensional Rift as a playstyle going forward? Let me know all of those thoughts in the comments down below. As per usual, if you guys enjoyed this video or found it informative, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. And as always, in the description of every single video and live stream, we have a link to our Discord community channel. Probably the best place to reach out to me directly in case you want to let me know what you thought about this video or hang out with the rest of the community to discuss some of the upcoming changes. Join our Discord to become part of the community. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching this video. I do hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know all of your thoughts down below. And as always, I'll see all of you guys in another video.